go, Junior. They already know what time it is.
T-Bug Crawford.
Yeah.
What's going on, you guys? So I've been seeing a lot of people. Crawford versus Rocha. Crawford versus Rocha. Errol Spence is going to fight Thurman. Crawford's fighting Rocha. Hit that like button for your boy. We're on Bushido Boxing TV. This is where we're going to be. But this whole Crawford-Rocha thing, right? Boxing fans seem to like to use these convenient narratives to hide from the fact that Errol Spence Jr. still simply just don't want to spin that block. That he still has yet to come out and address what is he going to do in regards to either fighting Thurman or let alone Terence Bud Crawford. He hasn't came out and said anything about him fighting at 154 pounds after telling fans that he wasn't leaving the division until he fought Crawford. But fans seem to want to really hang on this Alexis Rocha narrative. But they're not telling you that Rocha is the next upcoming mandatory anyway for Terence Bud Crawford. After so long, 18 months, that's when the WBO usually flexes on their mandatories. That's when guys usually have to face their mandatories. Alexis Rocha is the next guy coming up. People saw the picture in the meetings with Oscar De La Hoya, Bernard Hopkins, and Terence Crawford. Now they assume that Rocha is the next big move. I don't think that's necessarily a big move, Alexis Rocha. I think a big move would be for them to get a deal for Crawford, for him to get Errol Spence. Fans are, oh, well, why Crawford going to Golden Boy? Well, why did Floyd Mayweather for years use Golden Boy Promotions as his promoter? Right? Yeah, we forgot about that, right? Yeah, Mayweather Promotions and Golden Boy Promotions was working together for years until he branched off with PBC and Al Heyman, etc., right? But for the longest time, Golden Boy was promoting Floyd Mayweather's fights. And now that Terence Crawford's doing it, oh, well, now it's going to be a problem. If Oscar De La Hoya could get Crawford the Spence fight as a promoter, then, hey, what are we complaining about as fans? Crawford seemed to be doing whatever he can to get this dude in the ring, other than physically harming him or snatching him by his neck and say, look, snatch him by his collar and his shirt, tell him, come on, let's get in the ring, let's put this show on for the people. It's the only thing he hasn't done yet. But we sitting back complaining about situations when really there's open smoke right now for Crawford and Spence to fight early spring. Right now, they could be negotiating for the fight. Right now, Errol Spence could be getting prepared for Terence Bud Crawford. Instead, he's going to be fighting Keith Thurman, a guy that could possibly play spoiler on everything. Both guys are going to be getting relieved of the weight cut of 147 pounds, so both guys probably will be a lot fresher at 154 pounds. But Errol Spence Jr., the reason why we're talking about Crawford versus Rocha in the first place is because Errol Spence Jr. is tied up, allegedly. We don't know if that fight's even officially happening. Mauricio Sulaiman seemed to be not knowing what's going on with this. He seemed to have just gotten a phone call or a text message, say, make this happen, make that happen. Okay, I'll do it, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And it also seemed like WBC holds precedence over any of the other sanctioned bodies. Whatever WBC President Mauricio Sulaiman says goes as far as the sanctioned bodies is concerned. That's just what it looks like. Despite what WBA may say, despite WBO, despite IBF, WBC seems to really put a stamp on everything, and things seem to move when Mauricio Sulaiman says move. But this move to 154 pounds is a meaningless one, especially when we could go right into a fight with Terence Crawford and end this whole debate, this argument once and for all. But nah, fans don't want to do that. Fans want to keep talking about these narratives and who's ducking who and all this other foolishness, right? When we can just go right into the fight with Terence Crawford and end this once and for all. Instead of these guys saying, why Crawford fighting Rocha? Why is he fighting Rocha? What's going on? We don't even know if he's fighting Rocha for real. This is just a narrative that they're pushing. Instead of saying that about Rocha, how come you not questioning why Errol Spence ain't going to a fight with Terence Bud Crawford? Especially if the Thurman fight hasn't even been officially announced yet. We don't even know when this happened or if it's even going to happen. We just heard it's going to happen. And strange enough, whenever there's open smoke, there's always some type of easy road, or Sean Porter got a belt, or, we going to go ahead and get Ugas, we going to fight him instead. Oh, no, well, we going to fight Thurman instead. It's always something. And it makes you wonder, if Crawford hadn't have fought Avaresian, would this still been the narrative? when he actually got to fight with Spence in February when it was alleged to be supposed to be happening. We don't even know. Why? Because Spence get into accidents. And it's prolonged the inevitable even more. Us as fans, we just simply don't know what's going to happen in boxing. Nobody even seen this Oscar De La Hoya thing coming. And now fans assume that, Rocha, Blair Cobbs, and Virgil Ortiz is the options. And that could very well be the case for Golden Boy. Like to get Crawford on board for several fights, right? Those guys, they seem to really respect Crawford. Out of all the businessmen in boxing, these two dudes are former fighters, Hall of Famers. So they understand both sides of the game. And they the only two guys, as far as promoters are concerned, that really hasn't said anything negative about Terence Bud Crawford. So I say this, as a boxing fan, if they can make something happen to where we can get the Spence versus Crawford fight, then what are we complaining about? Oscar De La Hoya seemed to have been able to make Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis happen. They let it happen. Whatever happens, it happens. Putting Ryan Garcia on the line against Gervonta Tank Davis, April 15th, right? So if he can get Crawford to fight with Spence, then what's the big issue? Right? If PBC and Golden Boy are doing business with each other, then what's the issue? This is good for boxing. If these guys can bury the hatches, bury the bad blood that they had in the past and move forward for the better of the sport, then what's the problem? Right? Then what's the problem? Because at the end of the day, not everybody that we want to see fight are on the same networks or the same promotion companies. Guys are spread out across boxing. And if these promoters and these networks can work together to make some of the more intriguing matchups, then what else as fans are complaining about? Instead of us fans being on the same page, Spence versus Crawford, Spence versus Crawford, Spence versus Crawford. We're going to sit back and hang on the fact that, Spence fighting on Thurman. They don't even want to talk about the Spence-Thurman thing. But we go worry about what Terence Bud Crawford's doing. Instead of worrying about if Terence Bud Crawford will ever get the Spence fight. They're putting their energy into the wrong things. A lot of these fans are putting their energy into the wrong things. The pressure should be on Errol Spence to go forward with this fight with Terence Crawford. Because like I said before, you guys, it don't seem like Spence is really making an effort to really make this thing a reality. He's just kind of sitting back and letting things handle itself, letting the politics run its course, letting the powers that be simply seem to put up barriers and excuses and hurdles to prevent this thing from really happening. Maybe they just trying to age Crawford out. Maybe they waiting for signs of slippage. I don't know what they waiting on. But what I do know is that this fight needs to happen this year in 2023. After this alleged Keith Thurman fight, Errol Spence has 60 days to make this fight happen with Terence Crawford, or they go throw guys like Stanionis and all those other dudes in the ring. What is he going to do? Fight John Boots in his eye? I don't think so. John Boots in is simply just waiting for him to get elevated to IBF champion. Errol Spence may end up vacating that belt if he don't make this thing happen with Crawford. The pressure's on, and Errol Spence essentially is holding up the welterweight division. He's holding up the division. Crawford is actually fighting his mandatories and doing right by the sport. Despite what the critics may say. A guy like Rocha is mandatory. Mean Machine was a mandatory. He does his due diligence in the sport of boxing. Errol Spence hardly fights his mandatories. Hardly ever fights his mandatories. We hardly ever see him fight. He hardly ever says things we want to hear him say. He said it in 2022, but it ended up being cap season instead of strap season. Where's the pressure? Because we're going to keep up the pressure over here on this side of the internet. Fans complaining about the Rocha fight. Hey, if the Rocha fight happens, salute to Rocha from stepping into the fire against Terence Bud Crawford at 25 years old. Instead of bashing Crawford's opponents, how about we give them guys props from taking a challenge, stepping up to the plate, trying to prove they could be great, and beating the mighty Terence Bud Crawford. We gonna call them bums and then, this, that, and third. Them guys are brave. Because guys like Errol Spence, Dennis Ugas, Keith One-Time Thurman simply come up with excuses when it comes to fighting Terence Bud Crawford. This is what's happening. Instead of these champions, these high-level caliber guys that we talk about all the time and love and adore, instead of those guys stepping up to the plate and tackling the task of Terence Crawford, no, we go just sit back and simply say, oh, he don't deserve this. His pay-per-view number's that. Oh, he ain't fought nobody. Instead of these guys actually fighting him. It's guys like Igor Kavalaskis, Mean Machine, Kell Brook, Sean Porter, right? Those type of guys are stepping up to the plate, but they're not getting any credit for it. Oh, well, they just was bums anyway. And this is how it works. So how about we just get Errol Spence in the ring and end this debate once and for all so we can see who's really beating up on bums. Nah, we don't want to do that. We just go sit back and let the politics play its course instead of putting the pressure on the sport to making this thing happen in 2023. Nah, they not going to do it. We go simply run away from the fact that Errol Spence could fight Terence Crawford right now. We go simply run away from it. We rather Crawford just sit out and not do anything at all. Alexis Rocha is just mandatory, folks. Don't believe the lies. Don't believe these false narratives that Crawford's choosing to fight Rocha. If he fights Rocha, it's because he has to. And it'd be best to get the mandatory out the way if there's nobody else stepping up to the plate. Where's Udenis Ugas? Right? Where's all these guys? Where's all these dudes beating on Terence Crawford door? Hey, Errol, where you at, bro? Hey, Errol. Hey, are we going to see this fight in 2023 or what, bro? Like, subscribe, holla at your boy. Peace out.